Welcome to the Flymen Fishing Show, where we talk fly fishing, fly tying, and everything in between. I'm your host, Scotty Davis.
Turn this phone off. I know my wife's going to call. What's been going on with you?
Oh, same old stuff, different day, getting towards the end of the season here.
Yeah. When do you wrap it up for the year?
End of October.
Yeah. Just weather dependent.
No, we a lot of the state closes the end of this month, and then really the rest of it for the good waters anyways close on Halloween.
Okay.
And then we have year-round fishing, but it's not good.
Yeah. Gotta give them a rest.
Well, the water gets hard. It's pretty hard to get a fly through ice.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. Ever since I saw Grumpy Old Men, I kind of wanted to try it, Sitting one of
Yeah,
those
but that's
houses.
ice fishing. That's different. That's a different thing.
Yeah, that's Minnesota stuff.
That's all about, well, we do a lot here, but it's way more about drinking than it is fishing.
I think that's universal.
Yeah.
Well, tell us about your guide service, Blue Heron Guide Service, or Blue Heron Fly Fishing.
So Blue Heron Fly Fishing, I've been a guide for and working as Blue Heron Fly Fishing for 23 years now.
Dang.
I work for myself. I've got a rode a drift boat on the Kennebec River for all of that time. And I just had really nice group of clients, and it's been a really enjoyable time.
Nice. You get a lot of return clients, I guess, over the years.
Yeah.
What do you guide for mainly?
Trout and salmon.
Yeah.
A little bit of smallmouth fishing when it gets warm in the summer, but trout and salmon.
And where are you located in Maine?
I'm in the middle of the state, so I live just east of Augusta,
Okay.
but I fly fish on the Kennebec, on the Upper Kennebec, which is in Solon and Bingham, two towns way upriver, they're small towns that are right on the river.
Nice. When I was in college, I had a buddy whose dad lived in Booth Bay Harbor, and I think we were
Oh yeah,
probably 18. Barter's Island, I think, is actually where he lived, a little
Yeah,
bit from there.
yeah.
But we thought it'd be a good idea to spend the summer and take his dad's station wagon and his dad's canoe and go as far up the Kennebec as we could, kind of fishing our way. And I'm telling you, it was beautiful, especially for a Southern 18-year-old kid that's never been up there. And we got to the top, to the Indian Pond area.
Yeah.
You familiar with that?
So Indian Pond is just a little bit further up north than I guide, just one stretch up.
It's beautiful up there. I guess we were in what was called like the logging roads. Like if your car broke down, they might never find you up there. It was
Sure.
it was cool.
Plenty of traffic.
Yeah. This was also 20 something years ago. This is probably 95. So
Yeah.
But like I said, we were kids, and we got rained out of our campsite because we got there. We set up really, really quick. We didn't even put the rain fly on, and we just went fishing in that pond up at the top, lake, really. And got so much water in a rainstorm in our sleeping bags. There was just no way we could do it. So we kind of hightailed it out. And we found a bar/restaurant in the middle of nowhere. It was just the first thing we saw was this bar and a restaurant that had a hotel attached to it, like 2 rooms upstairs. So we had fake IDs. We go in there, we start drinking, as kids, and we get a room. And this guy comes up to us, and he really saved our lives. He said, "Is that your canoe outside?" And my buddy said, "Yeah, that's our canoe." And I never made the connection, but we had passed a couple of whitewater rafting places on the way up there.
That's right.
So the guy says, "Well, who's taking you?" And my buddy says, "Oh, we're taking ourselves." And he goes, "Well, do you have a helmet?" My buddy goes, "Yeah, tough guy, we got a helmet." And I'm sitting here thinking, we don't have life jackets because we're 18 and we're stupid. We have 1 paddle and like 4 fly rods, So that was the plan. One guy's going to paddle. And the guy says, I'll never forget it. He says, "Well, if I were you, I'd duct tape my boxers to myself and jump off the dam because you're going to lose your boat."
Pretty much. That fork stretch is I don't guide that because it really is the heaviest whitewater we have in the state. And there's some pretty treacherous water down there.
Yeah.
It really is raft water.
It was.
It's raft water. I do that. So the next stretch down from the forks is Bingham.
Nice.
And that is that comes out of Wyman Lake, which is just another impoundment, much like Indian Pond is just an impoundment. And Wyman, that Bingham stretch is just an incredible wild rainbow trout fishery. The last time we stocked them was in the 70s,
Oh, awesome.
and they have done fantastic. And they get big and crazy, just really big, fat, heavy, strong fish, and backing 4 or 5 times, spooled, gets spooled constantly.
Nice. Or the
I had one day this summer, had a good friend of mine who used to be the editor at Fly Rod and Reel with me. And I hooked and lost 2-foot fish within an hour of each other.
dang.
On dry flies. One of them just shaked his head, and I felt just like that, gone. And the other one spooled me. He just went, and I jam a ton of backing on everything, every bit I can get. So I have to crank the line on pretty hard to get it on the last bit.
Yeah.
And that thing just took me to school.
Man, found that current. It's a pretty good current in that stretch too.
It's decent current, but they're just strong, crazy fish. They're wild,
Yeah.
and they don't like to be touched. And it's big water, so they got a lot of room to run.
That's awesome. Do the brook trout come in that same section as well?
We get some decent brookies there. Not as many as the rainbows are really the principal fishery.
I guess
But we have a lot of really good brookies.
Yeah. Do you you guide for those as well?
Yeah, I have a pond that's probably 20 minutes away from my house that has 6 and 8 pound brookies in it.
Oh, geez. I don't think I would leave that pond.
Well, I like rivers a lot.
Yeah.
And so, and it's pick your poison. I love fishing for browns or dries, and I love those Bingham rainbows because they're really crazy.
Yeah.
And then I got those great big brookies. So it's okay.
When we were up there, I guess the mantra we heard a lot was, you can't get there from here. Everybody was, I can't say it in the Maine accent, you can't get there from here. But I'd ask, like, where should I go fishing? And that's the response I got from most people. And this one dude told me, he said, Wally World's biting. And he gave me directions to this place called Wally World. Have you ever heard of this? It's an abandoned amusement park. And it's creepy as shit, man. It seems like a horror movie walking out there.
Yeah.
But it had one of those little beaver ponds in the back. They weren't quite 6 pounds, but it was the first brook trout I'd ever caught over 12 inches, so I was ecstatic.
They are so pretty when they're wild too.
Yeah, they are
so pretty. And of course, this time of year, from now until, and we can fish that pond near me through the end of October, but those fish they're right at spawning time, and they are gorgeous fish.
Man.
They're all fully colored up, and they're huge because they're full of eggs, and they are just massive. The males are just stunning.
Yeah. If you look at a map of Maine, it seems like there's ponds, there's water everywhere. You can't go 5 miles without hitting a pond somewhere, it seems like.
Yeah, that's one thing for us. We do have a lot of water and a lot of diversity in the water. So there's a lot of really good smallie fishing. There's a lot of really good trout fishing. And unfortunately, we've had people have been introducing pike on their own. But we do have some pretty impressive pike fisheries here and there. And then we have great shad fishing now. Since on the Kennebec specifically, the Edwards Dam came out. Oh, it was quite a while ago now. And the shad have just exploded. The river herring, all river herring have. We have the alewife runs on the Kennebec now are somewhere north of 6 million fish a year.
Jeez. Are those American shad?
No, alewives are the shad that are in the river are American shad. But the alewives are a smaller river herring, but the shad fishery is really blossomed. And they are American shad, and there's all kinds of them.
They're one of some of my favorite. Ours start here about Valentine's Day. But I've talked to some biologists. They say it's kind of two subspecies. They consider them the same species, but there's basically a dividing line at Virginia.
Yeah.
You had to get a shad run down in northern Florida even, but it doesn't seem anything like those northeast fish.
Yeah. So
have you heard the story about the shad saving George Washington's army?
I'm not sure I have, but it sounds familiar.
Yeah,
I know that shad were incredibly important in colonial time. In fact, the indentured servants had it written into their contract that they could only be fed salmon a couple times a week, and they were required to be given a certain number of shad every week because shad were better to eat.
Really?
Yeah.
And salmon?
Yeah.
Do y'all eat the roe there too?
Yeah, a lot of people do. Yeah.
I can do that maybe once a year. That's an acquired taste.
Yeah, I've never had it, so I don't know. I do all catch and release. I just that's it.
Yeah. So when
great striper.
when you said that dam was removed in the 70s, did that help the salmon population a lot, or was that holding back the salmon population?
Well, so some, but the problem is just upriver a little ways is another one.
Yeah.
And then there's another one. So there's 3 dams between where the one that came out and a real good spawning habitat is. And boy, much like everywhere, the hydro operator here really doesn't want to put on fish passage that works. They really don't. And then they complain like crazy when somebody says, well, take them out then.
Yeah. What do they do now? They have fish ladders?
Nothing. We have
Nothing.
one dam that has an elevator on it. The attraction flow is not correct, so nothing will use it. And the salmon won't use it at all. And the other dams have nothing.
Huh. Aren't they?
No passage.
They're still listed as endangered, aren't they? The Atlantic salmon?
They sure are. Yeah.
You would think that would gain some sort of federal funding for that reason, you know?
Oh, there's a lot of work being done on them by getting those dam owners to step up and getting all of the players. And of course, even though there are U.S. Fish and Wildlife and National Marine Fisheries is all over trying to get that to happen, they're fighting against several other big federal agencies like the FERC.
Yeah. What is that?
Federal Energy Regulatory Commission.
Yeah.
They swing a big stick.
Yeah.
They swing a big stick.
Oh man. But
having been involved with that Edwards project, they're a lot of fun to play with.
Yeah. So you're allowed to fish for the salmon though now, correct?
No.
Nope. Can't target them.
No. You cannot target them at all.
That's good for them, I guess.
Yeah, well, the numbers are super depressed.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I live on the Sheepscot River. And when I was a kid, the Sheepscot River is a small river. And it was nothing to go down in the evening after work and fish over 100 fish, upwards of 20 pounds, but not anymore.
You grew up there on that river?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Then you live there still? You live there now?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, just a little ways down the road.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what do you think? What was the big problem putting up the dams? Or that was well before your time, I'm sure.
There's a lot. It's a very complex issue. The dams are a big part of it. Changing conditions in the oceans are part of it. There is a lot that is going wrong. And of course, we've added aquaculture to the mix with big salmon farms. So you can have genetic pollution and then the just unnatural populations of sea lice in the inlets to a lot of our major rivers where the salmon will come by, and they come in and they're just covered with sea lice. A lot of issues.
Do you see them in the rivers at all?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. And are the rainbows, do they act like Pacific salmon? Or do they kind of follow the Atlantics up?
No, the rainbows are not. They don't have access to the ocean. They're upriver further. They're in between a couple dams that don't have passage.
I got you.
So they're strictly an inland. They're not an anadromous.
Yeah. So when does your guide season start up there?
Really, in the good fly fishing really gets started in May. I mean, we're just getting ice out in April, so
The Kennebec.
the water is so everywhere. The water is so cold. Our surface water is so cold that the fish are very lethargic until we get into late April and early May, and then things start to pick up towards the southern part of the state, and up where I'm guiding, it's mid to late May. And the water is still, when I start, might be 45 to 50 degrees.
Oh wow.
And that's a little
That'll
on the lethargic side for those critters.
Yeah, man. So what do you do early in the season? Are you having to fish tiny flies, or you throwing a meat, or?
A lot of the time, streamers work really well early in the season, and nymphs, and then some midges.
Yeah.
Occasionally, we run into some small stoneflies that start hatching, things like that. But there will be nothing for mayflies for a while.
Yeah. And the mayflies more towards the end of the summer?
No, they start up, they get going once the water temperature reaches, of course, they're cold-blooded. Once they have enough degree days, they start popping. And some of our early hatches are quill Gordons or, and of course, stoneflies. Stoneflies we have, even in the wintertime, we have stoneflies hatch. But we have quill Gordons, and then the Hendricksons and the Drunella cornuta, which is a blue-winged olive. It's a size 16 blue-winged olive, but it's got tan wings. Fabulous hatch.
Nice.
And far better hatch than the Hendricksons, in my opinion.
Yeah. And when did you say that goes on?
That happens in late May or early June. Yeah.
Nice. And you'll fish streamers all season?
Yes.
Depending on what do you like to throw?
I got a streamer that is a Jack Gartside pattern, but I modified it with a fish skull. I love that streamer. That is my favorite streamer, hands down.
I remember reading about it in the blog that you wrote for us. I didn't see was there a picture of it too?
Yeah, I think so.
I
Yeah.
do know the one had the mallard flank on it on the side.
Yeah. The mallard flank's important. It kind of holds the minnow shape. It's so stiffer than the marabou, so it kind of keeps it in that shape. Boy, that's a good streamer. That is deadly.
That looks good
For smallmouth and trout.
Yeah. You stick to that color combo, or you change it up?
I like the olive one best. White's good as well at times. Black can be good too sometimes. But I haven't had a lot of success with yellow. I've tried yellow some, and some different colors. But for me, the olive is. You give me that for streamer, I'm happy.
Yeah, I would have liked to have met Jack Gartsides. He seemed like a cool dude.
He was a cat.
Yeah,
he was a cat. You never met him, huh?
No.
Yeah, I have some great stories, but probably not good for on air.
That'd be all right. He was from where? Massachusetts or Boston area?
Yeah, he was a cab driver in Boston, and he had actually rigged up a tying table that would hang on his steering wheel. So when he didn't have a fare, he was tying flies commercially. He was really something else.
Yeah, that's the image I have of him burned in me, is him tying on that steering wheel.
Yeah,
I did see a lot of his stuff, I guess, at the Fly Museum in Roscoe, New York. They had a lot of his stuff in there. It's pretty cool.
He's got some great patterns. I use several of his patterns, but that streamer, for me, the streamer's great.
Yeah,
I do fish a lot of wet flies too, and the Gartside Sparrow is a good fly as well.
Yeah,
that's a great little fly.
I hadn't seen that one.
Yeah,
duck wing kind of drop.
No, that's a. It's got. Let's see. The tail is marabou, and then you just dub the body, and then it has a phyllo plume collar with a church window feather off a pheasant collar tied on it and swept back. It is really effective fly.
That's awesome.
Really effective.
What size sculpin heads are you using? Or the baitfish heads. I
use a pretty big one.
Yeah.
Because I'm using one of the streamers I'm fishing 4s most of the time.
Nice.
Right on straight 2X.
Heck yeah. That's the way to do it. Horse them in there.
Yeah. They just tip right up, head down, and go right to the bottom if you just let them sit.
Are y'all swinging them downstream, or how do you fish them?
I know I'm a big believer in making that thing look like a wounded minnow. So I fish it creatively.
Yeah. That's good.
The other thing I ran into a couple of years ago, I had my son and my best friend in the boat with me, and I'm sitting in the middle and kind of not really guiding them, but guiding them. And I'm watching it. Every time my son casts, he has a follow on a streamer. But they're only hitting it probably every 10 casts. Bring that in here. I tied on a little size 20 a little beadhead pheasant tail, size 20, and on a fairly long dropper. And I'll be darned, almost every cast he was hooking up. If they didn't grab the streamer, it was almost like they didn't quite dare grab the streamer, but they made the effort, and darn it, there's something that I can eat. Right. And they would grab it every time.
Got them close enough to it.
Yeah. Once they saw it, and oddly, the nymph, you're stripping it just like you're stripping the streamer. But boy, they would climb on that over and over and over.
Yeah.
And that is one of my favorite tactics now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're throwing the big heavy one up front and then the little one behind it?
Yeah, just tying about a 2-foot piece of 5X behind, or right off the bend, and tying on a little pheasant tail, something or other.
Nice. Oh yeah, that'd work great.
It does. It's amazing. I don't know how those fish seem to put into their head that, and I know they only have a pea-sized brain, but that nymph is probably not chasing that minnow.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. That's a good point. Darwin
Yeah.
at work.
Yeah.
When does your smallmouth season start?
That starts in May.
Same
That
time?
starts in May.
Same
Yeah.
time frame?
Same time. Yeah.
Does the state shut that down in October, or they kind of let that go till you're done?
There's a lot of places we can still fish from as long as there's open water. Things start to tighten up, not necessarily late October, but by the end of November, things are going to start to button up.
Yeah.
We're going to start to have ice, and it just gets so cold that the smallmouths get pretty lethargic too. Although we do have some nice sea run brown fishing here in some spots, which that I will fish for them myself. I don't guide for them, but I fish for them even between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Nice. That's
if you get a nice 4 or 5 pound brown trout in there, that's pretty awesome. They
yeah.
like really small streamers or nymphs.
You're doing that at the river mouths down at the coast?
Yep. Exactly.
Are they coming in to the river for the winter, you think?
No, they come into spawn. They come in and out anyways.
Yeah.
The fresh water. Not as much as we also have sea run brook trout, but that's more of a spring thing. And that's the same thing with them. They have to come in because the trout, although browns can take salt water better, their kidneys seem to adjust. Brookies don't. Their kidneys don't. They don't go into smoltification process like a sea run fish does. And they can't process the salt, so they have to keep coming in and out to flush the salt out of their system.
Huh. They're just so greedy, they got to go out there and eat everything.
There's so much food out in that estuary.
Yeah.
And of course, the other thing with the estuaries is they're warmer. When it gets warm in the summer, estuaries warm up. It's right at the end of the stream, which is all warmed up, and it's not out in the ocean water, so it's not very cool.
Yeah.
So they got to come in to get out of that. But the browns come in to spawn.
Right.
And boy, they can be massive fish.
What's a good size fish for you?
5-6 pounds.
Right.
Yeah. I had one a few years ago that had a seal bite right on the top of his back. Perfect mouth in the impression right over his dorsal fin. And the seal is a pretty big animal. And that fish got away from it.
Oh, that's crazy.
Fish don't typically get away from seals.
Yeah. Huh. And you fish stripers in those same in those same river mouths?
We have good striper runs. I just don't fish them because I like spots. If they don't have spots, I just whatever.
Not so.
Yeah, they are. They're great. Stripers are great. You tend to migrate to one thing, and
yeah, seems like that coastal striper fishing gets kind of in nut house too. If you're in a drift boat upriver, it's probably a lot more zen.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Nice. So you'll typically do drift trips and the wade trips, and I saw you teach classes too. Teach fly tying and things like that.
Yeah, I sure do. Yeah.
Guess you have to in the winter when it freezes.
Well, it's also been a little tough the last few years.
Yeah.
Given the COVID thing, so that kind of has been out the window.
Maine was one of those states I saw that as soon as COVID hit, they were trying to encourage people to get outside, and they had lifted fishing licenses for a brief period, just to try to get people out. Oh, that was really cool.
I'll tell you, of course, we weren't shut down last year. It was challenging to guide. There were a lot of restrictions as far as, and especially if you couldn't stay separated by 6 feet.
Right.
If you were a wading guide, you could take a couple of guys that were buddies with you. If they drove their own vehicle, you didn't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
But if they were riding in your vehicle, it was a challenge. And in a drift boat, and I have a hide, an extra long hide, which is still only like 17 feet long. So there are 3 of you. There is no way you can do that math and stay 6 feet apart. It's not possible.
Yeah. So what'd you do? Just try to do more wade trips?
No, I just was trips, either husband and wife. If they lived together in the same household, they could be together.
Oh, okay.
But we all had to be masked. So it was a lot of husband-wife trip, father-son, and some just single trips. And other than that, they just canceled.
Things pick it back up for you this year?
No, I bet it's double a normal year this year.
Yeah.
For business.
Yeah.
It is absolutely crazy. And from everywhere across the country. I bet I haven't had 10 days this whole summer since the beginning of the season that I haven't had a call for a trip
Nice.
or an email, one or the other.
Yeah.
It has just been nuts. I've had people from Oregon and California, and Nevada and Texas and Ohio and Alabama, and all New York, all over the country, Massachusetts, everywhere.
That's crazy. Do you take a lot of locals too?
Yeah, I do.
People.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I bet you've seen some crazy stuff in 23 years.
Yeah, yeah. It's a lot of fun to be out on the river, and you see and you meet a lot of cool people. Once in a while, you have the proverbial horse's rear end, but for the most part, they're really great.
Yeah,
really great.
Most people coming up to that area just for the fishing, like most of those clients from around the country.
No, well, a lot of them come either because they're coming to visit Maine and they want to fish while they're here, and specifically, a lot of folks come to Acadia National Park and they want to go fishing while they're here. A lot of them come to Acadia. So I end up I get a lot of clients that are doing that. And they'll call and say, I'm going to be in Maine for this week. Have you got time? And of course, that's problematic right now because they're calling and saying, we're going to be in Maine next week. Do you have time? It's like, no.
Yeah.
No.
If you come this week next year, I'll get you. How far are you
That's
from the
pretty
park?
much it. What's that?
How far are you from the park?
Oh, where I fish is probably a good hour and a half from the park. But I guess if you're from Texas, that's not a huge deal. It's like driving to the grocery store. I don't know.
Yeah, that's not bad in a lot of the country, really. So you're a Maine master guide. What does it take to qualify as a master guide?
So to be a master guide here, we used to have a master guide class where you would you could test out so we have different classes. I should back up. We have different classifications of guiding. We have freshwater fishing, saltwater fishing is a separate classification, hunting, recreation, which covers canoeing, camping, hiking, whitewater rafting, sea kayaking. I think that's it. I think there are 6 classifications. And we used to say if you held a hunting, a fishing, and a rec license, you were a master guide. So technically you could test out of 3 tests, never take a client out in your life, and you were a master. That is against every precept of what we call a master in any other profession. In another profession, you have to have more experience to be a master. So the new way that we're doing it now for the last, probably 10 or 12 years, is you have to have held a guide license in a classification for 10 years, and you have to have guided for 250 hours in 5 of those 10 years. And 250 hours doesn't sound like a lot, but it's really quite a lot of guiding.
Yeah.
Because your prep time doesn't count. Only in the field time counts. And most anybody who guides knows that prep time is damn near half of it.
Yeah, and cleaning the stuff afterwards and everything.
You got to go home and do dishes. You got to go grocery shopping, go pick the clients up, drive back to the river.
Yeah.
A lot of wrangling going on.
So you held the 3, you held a hunting guide permit as well? No,
I've only ever held a freshwater fishing guide license, but I've got mine with the hours of service.
Is it still work that is there like subcategories still?
Yes. Yeah. So you can have a master license in all the subcategories, but I don't know how you'd ever live long enough.
Right. Yeah.
Because it's 10 years a category, and you have to put those hours in each category.
Yeah.
So to be a master in many of them is quite a challenging deal.
Yeah. So what are you doing during the winter? Do you travel to fish, or do you tie a lot of flies at home?
I tie flies.
Yeah.
So I supply flies for my clients.
Yeah.
One of my very first patterns that I tackle every fall is that outside streamer.
Yeah.
Fall.
How'd you get started fly tying?
A couple millennium ago, I had a teacher in grade school, and a buddy of mine and I were down here on the river, and we saw a couple salmon. We were numbing around one summer and saw a couple grills, and we got back to school and talking about it, and he really, really wanted to know what those fish were. Well, of course, it was the next winter, so big deal. But And he around in this neck of the woods, a lot like you can't get there from here.
Yeah.
That you don't kiss and tell
Right.
ever. So he was really persistent. We finally finagled a deal where he would teach us to tie flies if we showed him where the fish were. Now, his idea of teaching us was he brought an old Thompson double A vise, a handful of different colors of bucktail, a bobbin, spool of thread, and a pair of scissors, and some fingernail polish, and said, "Here you go. You can have each one of you can take it home for a night."
That was it.
That was it.
Yeah.
Slippery slope.
You still have that fly by chance?
Oh, heck no.
Yeah.
I'm glad I don't, because it wasn't pretty, I'm sure.
Yeah. Got you here though.
Yeah, and of course that was a time. It's very different now with the internet and YouTube. And at that time we didn't have that stuff. But you try to read a book, and specifically you'd read a book and you'd think you were doing great, but you'd leave something out because it didn't seem like it was too important to you. Well, knowing now what I know, that piece that I was leaving out because it didn't seem important was probably the most important part of the whole damn fly.
Yeah.
And if you didn't done that right, but you were trying to read a book and interpret it by somebody who really didn't care if you learned how to tie flies or not. There wasn't a lot of sharing back then. YouTube has been, it's incredible for younger folks what YouTube can do for them.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. I'm a little old school too. I started way before all that stuff. Like you said, it was tricky. You couldn't just learn as easily as you can now. And people weren't as willing to give that info away either.
They really didn't want to share. It was a pain in the neck that way.
Yeah.
They really, really didn't want to share. But it's been okay because, you pick stuff up, and the fly show, we have a version of the fly show here, but we have to go to Marlboro to get to it. And that was fantastic to be able to go to that. And actually the first time I think I went was in Boston. The show hadn't moved out of Boston yet. And that was pretty cool. See Gary LaFontaine and Jack Dennis and Mike Lawson all together doing their shtick. And LaFontaine was fantastic. He was such a nice guy.
Yeah. I got a lot of his books. I never got to meet him though.
Yeah, no, I got to meet him. I chatted with him. He really a super guy. And I still use a lot of his patterns. I still do.
Yeah. Yeah, Maine's got a pretty deep history of fly tying. I heard the Carrie Stevens. There's even a Carrie Stevens Day in Maine. Is that right?
Yeah,
The state gave a whole day for her.
Yeah.
Yeah, she invented
Carrie.
Great ghost for people that don't know. So.
Yeah, Carrie's and the intro, and we have a number of tires now that are trying to replicate what she did. Celine Domaine in Western Maine is a fantastic tire, and she ties exactly how Carrie would have. She doesn't use a vise; she holds it in her hand.
Yeah,
and she ties a beautiful gray ghost that way.
Nice.
She spent a lot of time perfecting that skill
on the real long shanked streamer hooks, right?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
They suck to keep a fish on, but they're really pretty.
Yeah.
Fish has a lot of leverage on a 10X hook.
There's no doubt. 10X, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. You got clients the rest of the week? You fishing this week?
I have a client Saturday and Tuesday, and I have quite a run coming up here.
Nice. Yeah, we'll put links on the website here too, so people can get in touch with you.
Oh, love to have it. Thanks, appreciate it.
Yeah. So I spent a whole summer there, and I couldn't tell you the prettiest month because they were all so pretty. But when would you tell people that never fished up there, want to come fish with you? When would you tell them like the ideal perfect time? Say they want to do 2 days smallmouth, 2 days trout.
Actually, you want to do 2 days of smallmouth, 2 days of trout. You want to come mid-June to mid-July. That is absolutely prime time for trout.
Yeah.
September and October can be fantastic for trout, but the smallmouths are starting to slow down.
You fish smallmouth in the rivers, or you do that in the lakes and ponds?
We have fabulous river smallmouths.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jealous. That's where I caught my first smallmouth, was in Maine.
Yeah.
It was a different.
They're not native here. Not native here. But we do have a tremendous smallmouth fishery.
Nice. I didn't know that. I didn't realize they weren't native.
No, as close as they came to us was Western Massachusetts or the St. Lawrence Seaway, as far as their native habitat.
Did the state put them in as a fishery? Or
Yes,
yeah,
the state put them in. Yeah, absolutely.
probably lost a lot of baby trout that year.
Yeah, brook trout and smallmouth do not play well together.
Yeah. Each
The
each
brook
other's
trout
eggs and
No, the brook trout go away quite quickly.
do they?
Yeah, the smallmouths outcompete them, and they go away fast.
Yeah.
When somebody introduces them into a trout pond, it's a very short window of time before they're gone.
That's kind of sad.
4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
We
Wow.
do have another trout here that's really an interesting trout. That is extremely rare. And I don't know if you ever met Bob Benke, but he was a fisheries professor out in I think University of Montana. Fantastic, fantastically knowledgeable fisheries scientist. And he always said that he felt it was the most rare salmonid in the world, and that is our blueback trout, which is actually a landlocked Arctic char,
Really?
glacial remnant. And they're natives, they're glacial remnants. And I think we only have 13 populations, 14 populations left. That's it.
You mean 13 streams or whatever that hold them?
Ponds.
Yeah.
Ponds. Yeah.
Are they pretty high? Are they highly protected as well?
They are now, finally. You can fish for them. You can fish for them. They're quite striking, especially in the fall. They look a little bit like a brookie, but they don't have the red spots with the blue halos around them, and their belly tends to get more orange or yellow. They don't get as red as a brookie.
Right. Still have that black mouth, that char mouth though.
Yeah.
Oh. So they have a bluish hue to their back. I guess that's how they got their name.
Yeah, they're kind of silvery in the summertime.
Yeah.
Until they get close to spawning, they're kind of silvery. So that's where they got that from.
I'll have to check that out, man.
But they're landlocked Arctic char, and that's a pretty cool species.
Yeah, especially
It's a bucket list fish.
to be here for that long too, holding on in those little areas like that.
Yeah, we're the only state in the continental United States that has them, except I guess Idaho has them in a couple high mountain lakes.
Yeah.
That came from here. They transplanted them from here. New Hampshire had them, but they're extirpated.
And the Atlantic salmon, you have the only wild Atlantic salmon run left in the U.S. too, right? No other states can claim it.
Yeah, that's it. That is it.
That's awesome. Well, cool. Well, thanks for talking to us today. I will like to keep in touch with you. I'd like to come out there and fish with you one day soon.
Hey, if you get up here, I would love to have you out in a boat for a day or 2 or 3.
Heck yeah, man. It's a pretty place.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Sean. That's it, man. We'll keep in touch.
Perfect. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, brother.
Nice talking to you.
Yes, sir. Thanks.
See you.